So, week 3, 808 research. 808 research was mainly just listening to rap songs and noting down what I noticed about the 808s, if it cut off really quickly, if it faded out, and just really understanding the role that it played in tracks. And when I started listening to a lot of rap songs and started hearing the 808s, I realized that these are stuff that I should be noting down and be implementing into my research, which you can see the notes in evidence and bibliography. The main reason I did this was just because, one, even though I understood 808s to the extent that I did, using 808s in tracks and understanding what 808s to use in different types of songs and being able to identify, like, yeah, I want this kind of 808 or I want this kind of one, is a very crucial decision you have to make when making your song. And I started writing down a bunch of different songs that I heard. Some were very hard-hitting electronic rap songs, but some of them were very chilled out, and it got to a point where almost because I was just listening to the songs, I couldn't fully tell if it was just either just a really hard-hitting bass or, a really quiet 808. And I started realizing that it's all about balance, and that was the main outlook I got from this research, was that it is just a bass. It's nothing. It's just a really hard-hitting bass. I saw a TikTok from Charlie Puth talking about the reason 808s exist, and the reason 808s exist is because in places like cars, big speakers, a lot of the bass would get drowned, and since bass is such a big part in rap songs and creating that hard-hitting sound, 808s were created so that when you were in your car, if you're on your speakers, you could really, really hear that bass. And that's why it's a quite ugly sound. It's because it's drowned in the rest of the song. And especially if it's very electronic, it gets very easily buried. And with that, I was able to create this almost like thesis of it's all about balance. And especially with stuff like kicks involved and melodies involved, it's being able to have this balance of this 808 that's drowned, so it doesn't have that ugly sound, but it's not drowned enough so that you can't hear it. It's meant to just be like almost like a backbone, the same way that a bass is normally in regular songs. But obviously in different genres, let's say like rock, it's a very distorted bass, which is why that it's heard and not just buried down by all of the distortion and overdrive on the regular guitars. And from this, I started to get this very clear of idea of what an 808 is used for, even though I didn't watch a video or anything like that of someone implementing an 808 in their track, mainly because you can almost hear it in a already well mixed done track and be like, yeah, this is how it's meant to be. Even though that does have its side effects of you don't know what mixes on it to make it sound like that. That's research that can be done later on in life. Instead, this week's main focus was just making tracks, and listening to regular music was just something that I naturally did, walking to college, walking to work, going anywhere for your haircut. It's stuff that you can, I'm not on my phone watching videos 24/7. It's a thing that, I can't physically do. However, when I caught myself like almost trying to hear the 808s in regular songs, I realized that this is something that, I really should be noting down and taking mental notes of. And with this research, I then created 2 tracks that were mainly based around the 808s, and one of them is called 808 and one of them is called like lol TFD something. I can't give you the full. With the tracks that I created, because of the research, I did know that a lot of my 808s and stuff like that wasn't well mixed. I thought that even though the role that they were playing was correct, when I took a step back and like listened to the tracks, I thought they were alright, but I thought that it can be better. Like, I always thought that it could definitely push a higher level. And obviously, quality of the 808, I am pulling this from drum kits that are very cheap. They're very run down or potentially stolen that I'm using for these tracks. However, I still found that when I was making the 808s that I understood it better because of the research that I have done. Even though that I can see that there's clearly further research to be done on the subject, I thought that it was a very good base level. I didn't mean that on purpose. And it meant that I could go and then create tracks, which was the main purpose of this week. And I think, and overall, I thought I was very happy. I was making tracks based on the research that I have done, which is always a good thing. Because even if I don't like the music that I've created, I've still created. And, you know, being able to push past, you know, the thought of, oh, it's rubbish, there's no point, you know, and just getting better at making music is just number one objective in my head, and that's all that really matters to me. And, you know, even though that, you know, this kind of stuff is going to help with the EP, and even if I don't like the EP, I'm still making music, and I think in my head that's number one thing, of just constantly making and constantly getting better. And the more I use 808s, the more I'm going to understand them, more I'm going to understand how to mix them better and where they should be balanced in the track, and, you know, being able to find that balance. And I think that is wicked. Both tracks are also evidenced in evidence and bibliography with the breakdown of the tracks that I made.